Carlson has been released as the Packers shift from their 91-man roster toward 53 by the 3 p.m. deadline. Anders Carlson waived by the Green Bay Packers. Tausch, first of all, good morning. How are you?
Morning. I'm okay.
Better than Anders Carlson.
Anders.
Look, I criticized Goody for drafting him. I said at the time that I like kickers who've gone through the ups and downs, and I cannot lie. Like, I want a guy to get the ups and downs out with somebody else's team, and then I get him once he's kind of figured out how to kick. So I said that then, so now I am going to praise Goody, which I know you weren't expecting. Because the easy thing to do here, and quite frankly, the thing that I would have done here, is said, oh boy, I know he's been inconsistent, but I don't want to have happen with Anders Carlson what the Vikings had with Daniel Carlson. And I would have said, we're gonna push through this. We're going to stick with him. We're going to keep him. He's going to be our kicker this year, and we're going to get this figured out. And then eventually he'll become as good as his brother. And it won't be for someone else. It'll be for us. This takes guts. This takes conviction. And quite frankly, Tausch, it takes the willingness to say, I made a mistake by drafting this guy last year. And so I am here to praise Brian Gutekunst for doing this, because I wouldn't have. I would not have had the fortitude, you prefer, I think, cojones, to do this. Yeah. Are you with me?
So, no, I mean, I'm not with you in the fact that I don't draft a kicker. I'm with you on Goody having stones and making a ton of good decisions and being able to, I think everybody that gets in these positions takes a little bit from the people before them. I think Goody has taken a lot of things from Ted Thompson.
No doubt.
Luckily, I think a lot of it is drafting wide receivers and offensive linemen at a pretty high clip.
At least lately.
The other thing, and I think Ted may be not as good at Ron with getting rid of guys. Ted never would cut a draft pick. Like, I don't know how many draft picks were cut. Ron Wolf would say, and I know you always love the Joey Jamison of 2000, fifth-round pick, and he pretty much told you guys out on the field as the media, yeah, it's probably going to work. And he got rid of it.
Different choice of words, but yes.
Yeah, I blanked up, something of that nature. So
indeed.
It takes, if you're going to be a leader and you're going to be a general manager in the NFL, nobody bats 1,000. Where you get in trouble is when you keep chasing and you keep hoping that something's going to work out. And I think in Anders' case, this wasn't like he is the worst kicker in the league. No, statistically, he wasn't great. No, don't get me wrong. But
True.
He had promise. Where I disagree, I agree with you wholeheartedly on your Goody sentiments. But I'm not going to sit here and say you shouldn't draft a kicker. I would not draft a kicker early because that just adds another layer of pressure to a young player. But you're going to tell me you wouldn't have drafted Mason Crosby? Is that what you're going to tell me?
All right, first of all, they still had the option, and Mason would have been happy to return for another season had they not drafted.
No, but I'm talking about drafting.
Right, no. I understand. Yes, and my point was going to be they had Dave Rayner as their kicker the previous year, right? They had let
Billy Cundiff,
Ryan Longwell walk, and they chose to draft a sixth-round kicker, same as Anders, and that one worked out. You're right. But I don't know, and I have not done the research, and quite frankly, I don't have time to do the research today, but that Cade York fella that was just traded from Cleveland to Washington, fourth-round pick, right? I mean, they used a fifth-round pick on a punter in Goody's first draft, right? And what I find fascinating is that a lot of times those guys struggle and get cut by the team. I would bet that there are fewer examples of Mason Crosby who gets drafted and is the kicker for the next decade plus than there are of examples of guys that are drafted. It doesn't work out at their first stop, doesn't maybe work out at their second or third stop either, and then they kind of find themselves. I don't have evidence to back that up, but it would be my belief that they are more likely to flame out and then take some time to figure out mentally, mechanically, everything else, how to be an NFL kicker. Same with punters. So I'm not saying that there aren't Mason Crosbys out there. I'm saying if I'm betting, which I don't do, but if I was, I would bet that a draft pick is more likely to fail than to succeed with his first team.
Yeah, I mean, that's just I don't agree. I mean, there's a reason you draft a guy. It's because the talent is there. I don't have one problem at all. Goody, that's why you have 13, 14 picks. Not every player is going to pan out. This just gets more high profile because the position is important and because it feels like you can just grab somebody from their house and then come out and make kicks because it's such a revolving door position, and veterans can stay in there, and whether it's a Mason Crosby or you can just name Greg Joseph, whoever you want to name can come in and get the job done.
Right.
But you still want to have a young player that you feel like can turn into Mason Crosby, Ryan Longwell, Justin Tucker. And I just find it interesting that the Packers have had great kicking for a vast majority of, this 30-year run.
Yeah.
Great quarterback play, obviously. And the fact that this transition to quarterback with Jordan Love went better than the Mason Crosby transition, I find fascinating. Because that has not been as smooth.
I would agree, although let's not forget that they were 2-5, and Jordan Love had thrown 10 interceptions in the first 9 games.
Hey, oh boy, plenty of times in the Brett Favre era we were 1-4, and we bounced back. So I ain't worried about that.
I'm not sure.
I'm not.
Plenty of times, a couple times maybe.
2 years in a row. And we made the playoffs.
True. It's true. It is true.
Believe that. I was there.
You were.
Believe that.
You
no,
were there.
So, yeah, I mean,
by the way,
I know
Anders
you're big on.
Anders Carlson struggled in college. Like, that was the conversation we had. We looked at his numbers. They were not good at Auburn. Plus, he was coming off of an ACL tear previously in his career. So it's possible they just picked the wrong guy. And there were probably other kickers they could have picked, and it would have had a different result.
Do you think Goody, midway through last season, had a conversation with Bisaccia and said, I don't know if I'm going to keep listening to you? You know this has got Bisaccia's fingerprints all over it.
No doubt it does.
That they
no
drafted
doubt it
him.
does.
So I don't know. I always wonder, you want to get input from other people. I wonder how much of this was Goot, and he's got to take it. He owns it. It's his draft. But I do wonder if he was swayed by the savvy veteran special teams coach that seems to love you and his relationship with Daniel Carlson and how that shook out. That should have probably almost lent itself to your point to not draft the kicker.
So Daniel the landscaper getting after me a little bit here, although he calls Brian Gutekunst an idiot, not me, so I thank him for that, I guess. Brian, this is on the talk and text line, 844-770-3776, 844-770-3776, taking your reaction to this. We'll get to Malik Willis momentarily, because the Packers also have a new backup quarterback.
Why do I even make a show sheet?
Because it's a valuable guideline for the show, Jesse. You do a great job on it. Brian is an idiot for drafting a kicker. How can you possibly give him credit, Jason? Makes no sense. All right, Daniel, stay with me here. You do realize if we had just kept Mason, we probably would have been in the Super Bowl last year. All right, you have to listen to everything I said. I did say that I would have just kept Mason Crosby for another year. It wouldn't have cost him that much. He still wanted to kick. I would not have drafted Anders Carlson. I am only giving him credit for Ron Wolfing this. Okay? And I criticize Goody a lot. Some people think I hate him. They're wrong about that. The bottom line is the easy thing to do here is to defend your draft pick and stand by your draft pick and say he's going to get it figured out. And instead he Ron Wolfed it.
Yeah, especially in a contest that was this close.
Right.
Like,
I
nobody
don't know
really
if they're
pulled
keeping
away.
Greg Joseph either, though. Do you?
I don't. I'm tempted to say they're not because I would think, although they would have probably released both, but you have to have. I wonder if there's somebody lurking. Justin Tucker for Musgrave, something like that.
Sounds like a great trade.
It just feels like
for Ben Sims.
It feels like Bisaccia had his fingerprints all over this, had the relationship, and sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. But I'm not going to sit here and castigate. And by the way, the Mason Crosby, we all said last year, be nice to have that veteran kicker who can help your quarterback find ways to win some games. We forget.
He did.
I believe Anders made a kick to beat the New Orleans Saints last year, right? That great comeback?
He made an extra point, and there was still it wasn't
missed a lot of extra points.
It's true, he did.
Last year.
It was not a walk off, but it was an important kick against New Orleans.
Yes.
It gave them the point, and then the Packers still almost lost it because they gave up enough yardage for a 46-yard field goal that their field goal kicker missed.
Thanks, Joe.
They also, Anders did make a field goal at the end of the Christmas Eve game in Carolina after the Panthers had come roaring back, pardon the pun, and tied it at 30. So he did make some clutch kicks, but they also had some games where they lost by single scores or maybe 3 or less, where you thought, hey, if you have Mason Crosby, you'd feel a lot more confident if it came down to a field goal. All right, also.
That's easy to say now, but I don't know how Mason did when he played with the Giants. I don't remember.
I don't know if I'm not
really
sure. Good. I'm not sure how much he got to kick with the Giants.
No, I know he missed one long kick because I remember watching it on Red Zone. So it's easy to second guess. And
he'd been out of football all year. I'm not here to make excuses for Mason, but
I don't have a problem.
He's wearing number
with
21
what Goody did,
also.
And now it's on him to figure this spot out. And he trusted. But the thing you said earlier this offseason, because I just have been around the Packers organization and the mindset long enough, and especially with Ted, to know they have ideas on how they want things to shake out. Doesn't always happen. Doesn't always work. And I always am of the belief tie goes to the draft pick. That's how it always has worked.
Agreed.
And you said early in this offseason, not in this case. I think they're really, really hoping it's not going to be if it's all things are equal, we're going to stick with Anders. This is a case where Anders needs to win this job. And unfortunately, I think that missed kick, the 33-yarder, I think just continued, as you put yesterday, it just continued to remind them that his consistency isn't where it needs to be, and that's why the G&G is either going to have Greg Joseph, which I still don't know if that's going to be the road they go, or they're going to find a new kicker for this hopeful championship run.
Mason Crosby in 3 games with the New York Football Giants last year, 5 of 7 on field goals in those 3 games, 6 of 7 on extra points. Now, again, been out of football all year. Yeah, but he'd been out of football all year, in fairness. And the bottom line.
Listen, I'm a Mason stan. I'm a Mason stan much more than a Goody
Maybe he's
stan.
coming back.
But all I'm telling you is just because Mason Crosby's been around and been a great kicker for a long time doesn't mean that the Green Bay Packers are going to the Super Bowl. Now, would I have felt better about Mason kicking a 47-yarder to tie the game last year? Yeah, I would have. And I bet Brian Gutekunst would have too.
And that, to me, is the story of Anders Carlson, is that, as we talked about yesterday, it's not that he missed the 32-yarder at the end in the fourth quarter on Saturday. It's that he was fine throughout the game, and it's almost like you feel like you're just waiting for him to miss that kick because he misses a kick in almost every game. Extra point, field goal, whatever. When you miss a kick in 10 of their last 12 games last season. When you do that, you're just waiting for that shoe to drop. And maybe Matt LaFleur would put it as, I'm praying every time he goes out there, and then Tom Rinaldi will put it out there into the public. But the bottom line is that that's how they felt, and now they are moving on. They are also making a change at the quarterback position, the backup quarterback position. Now, I don't know what their intentions are. Can you get Malik Willis ready to be the backup, that if a catastrophe hits in Sao Paulo, that you're then going to have him play in the game? We'll talk about that coming up, because they have now, as Brent in Indiana, we'll never forget you, Brent. Personally, I'm impressed with Goody's humility, releasing a kicker and picking a new QB after failing at both draft picks. #TrustTausch.